This 25-year-old ramen restaurant in Hyogo Prefecture is about to be closed down despite continuous support by local residents. This man has been a loyal customer for 15 years. He tells the reporter that the flavor here is unlike anywhere else and represents the unique character of this city. From how busy the restaurant is, it's hard to imagine that it's actually on the brink of financial collapse. Despite the abundance of customers, the restaurant owner confesses that he's no longer able to keep up with the rising cost of raw ingredients. Over the past 5 years, one of the central ingredients, pork, has increased by about 50% in price. The restaurant is unable to raise prices at the same speed as the raw ingredients due to a concept called the Wall of 1,000 yen. In the ramen industry, the Wall of 1,000 yen refers to the idea that customers are generally unwilling to pay more than 1,000 yen for a bowl of ramen. Keeping the price of ramen under 1,000 yen has been recognized as the key to operating ramen restaurants. The Wall of 1,000 yen is rooted in ramen's history of being a cheap food for the working class. Japanese people generally recognize affordability as a central component of ramen, and being charged more than 1,000 yen creates the uncomfortable feeling of overpaying for something that's supposed to be cheap. The conflicts between the customer's perception of ramen being cheap and the harsh reality of rapidly rising costs of raw ingredients have made running small independent ramen restaurants more difficult than ever. No matter how much the cost of raw ingredients goes up, ramen restaurant owners find it difficult to pass the cost on to customers, which creates an unsustainable business model. In 2024, the number of bankruptcies filed by ramen restaurants reached the highest in history. Data from 2023 shows that 33.8% of ramen restaurants were operating at a loss, and 27.7% were operating with less profit than before. From this data, it's clear that more than half of ramen restaurants are financially struggling. In order to survive, some ramen restaurants are beginning to serve soupless noodles instead of ramen. Whereas soup is a central component of ramen, it's expensive to make. According to a ramen restaurant owner who is currently struggling, in addition to the cost of raw ingredients, making soup is also expensive in terms of utilities because soup needs to be boiled for a long time. The gas and electricity cost of making soup is also a financial pressure on small restaurants. For restaurants that are trying to cut costs, eliminating the soup component is a necessary financial strategy. According to a restaurant owner who transformed his ramen restaurant into a soupless noodle restaurant, he has been able to save significantly both in terms of labor costs and raw ingredients. For restaurants that persist in making ramen with soup, raising the price at the risk of alienating existing customers becomes inevitable. In 2024, this beloved ramen restaurant in Hokkaido had to raise the price of one bowl of ramen from 930 yen to 1,000 yen. The owner of the restaurant explains that the raise is financially necessary, but he also admits that paying 1,000 yen for a bowl of ramen is a lot. He says that with his current income as the restaurant owner, paying 1,000 yen for one simple meal is actually a burden. He feels bad for raising the price to the point that even he considers expensive if he was the customer, but this is the only way to survive. He says that ramen restaurants are generally not very profitable, and people who run ramen restaurants are not doing this for money. He wants customers to understand that when ramen restaurants raise prices, it's generally not for profit but for survival. The struggles of small independent restaurants have created an unprecedented business opportunity for large corporations and chains. For example, the restaurant industry behemoth Yoshinoya has been aggressively expanding into the ramen space. In January 2025, Yoshinoya purchased the ramen chain based in Kyoto. In 2024, it also purchased the manufacturer of ramen ingredients. As of now, Yoshinoya operates 95 ramen restaurants throughout Japan and 34 overseas. In 2024, another restaurant industry giant called Toridoru was able to open 21 ramen restaurants, which was happening at the same time as small independent ramen restaurants were filing bankruptcies in unprecedented numbers. The expansion of large corporations and chains is significant because ramen is actually an industry where small independent players have been traditionally very resilient against competition from big companies. Whereas industries like cafes are absolutely dominated by chains, about half of all ramen restaurants in Japan are small independent businesses. From the perspective of large corporations, the current state of the ramen industry has a lot of room for expansion if more and more small restaurants are forced out of business. If small ramen restaurants cannot find a way to survive in the era of rising costs, the future of ramen in Japan will be controlled by large corporations and chains. In recent years, the average quality of life in Japan has been devastated by the incredible rise in the price of food. According to December 2024 data published by the Ministry of Agriculture, the prices of everyday vegetables today are 1.5 or even 2 or 3 times higher than average prices between 2019 and 2023. These vegetables are all central components of the average Japanese diet, and seeing their prices double or even triple in the span of less than a decade is causing nationwide panic over the affordability of food. In January 2025, residents of Tokyo are shocked to find that one head of cabbage is being sold at more than 1,000 yen, which is triple the usual price. Even the produce shop owner is baffled by the price and admits that this is not a price that's affordable to the average family. He says he doesn't remember cabbage being this expensive ever. This Tokyo restaurant owner says that one box of cabbage has gone from 1,800 yen to 6,000 yen in a short span of time. He says that he would never imagine going under this much financial pressure over cabbage. Whereas the ramen industry is hit particularly hard due to its unique inability to pass the cost on to the customers, other sectors of the food industry are also struggling. For example, this Tokyo bakery has been a local favorite for 10 years but decided to shut down in 2024 due to the rising cost of raw ingredients. The price of flour has increased drastically since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the bakery is no longer able to keep up. This trend is further exacerbated by the plummeting value of yen in recent years, which has made importing food from overseas much more expensive. This woman, who has been a regular customer, is crying and expressing her sadness over the closure. Another type of restaurant that is under heavy financial pressure is yakiniku, or barbecue. In 2024, yakiniku barbecue restaurants also went bankrupt in unprecedented numbers. In the same year, the price of beef imported from the USA has gone up by more than 60% compared to the previous year. This owner of a yakiniku barbecue restaurant in Osaka tells the reporter that in his 30 years of career, this is the most drastic increase in price. This Osaka restaurant that specializes in pork dishes is under heavy financial pressure due to the rising cost of pork. The restaurant owner tells the reporter that since he opened the restaurant 13 years ago, the price of pork has almost doubled. Professor Tomei Yosuke of Hiroshima University says that the cost of raising domestic animals in Japan have gone up because Japan needs to import fodder from overseas, which is directly impacted by the plummeting value of yen. He warns that the rising cost of importing animal fodder will continue to reduce the affordability of meat. He says that Japan urgently needs to start producing animal fodder domestically. For more information about the reality of Japan, follow me on Blue Sky. I also post exclusive content on Patreon, so please consider joining me on Patreon if you like my content. I'll see you next time.